The first thing Jacob Reeve noticed was how quiet death could be. His escape pod plummeted through alien atmosphere, screaming fire and stress against the reinforced hull, but inside was silence. Silence, and the blinking red light that told him no one was coming to help. He didn't remember hitting the ground. One moment, turbulence shook his molars loose. The next, he was staring at a pale green sky from a cracked window smeared with blood that was probably his. Then the hatch was wrenched open. Not by rescue crews. Not by humans. They looked like nightmares. 8-foot insectoids with glistening black exoskeletons and golden eyes that pulsed with eerie light. Clawed hands reached in and pulled him out like he weighed nothing. A claw tapped at the back of his neck. He blacked out. When he woke again, he was in a chamber of smooth chitin and soft organic membranes that pulsed gently, like a sleeping beast. No windows, just walls that breathed and glowed, and an ambient hum that pressed against his ears like a heartbeat. He was naked, not strapped down but clearly a prisoner. A voice slid into his ears, feminine, oddly melodious, but not quite human. Jacob turned. She stood at the far end of the room, poised like royalty. 6 limbs, but with a humanoid shape that echoed grace and control. Her face was alien, but symmetrical, with expressive eyes and a crest that shimmered faintly as she moved. No chitinous armor, no weapons, just a deep blue robe of living silk that floated behind her as she walked toward him. I am Zira, genetic consort and diplomat of Hive Zyral. Her head tilted, examining him like a puzzle. You are Jacob Reeve, lieutenant, navigator, human male. Where am I? His throat burned, and the words came out hoarse. You are safe. For now. She circled him, not with menace but with intrigue, as though every inch of him told a different story. You fell from the sky. We found your vessel in flames. You survived a descent no Zyrelian could endure. Fascinating. Jacob didn't respond. His instincts screamed at him to play dumb, stay calm. Information was power, and right now he had none. Zira stopped in front of him and reached out. He flinched, but she only brushed her fingers, warm, not chitinous, across his chest. You are soft. Your biology is inefficient. Yet your species thrives. I wonder why. He pulled away. I'm not here to be studied. But you are, she said gently, not mockingly. You were not invited, Jacob Reeve. And now the Hive has questions. They began tests. Not torturous, but invasive. Scanners, samples, long hours of questions from Zira as she watched him through the glass. Noting how he slept, ate, dreamed. She was always there, always curious, always watching with those sharp, unreadable eyes. Over time, the questions shifted. Less about his ship, more about him. Do human males pair for life? Are your reproductive methods wholly internal? Do you desire your partners? Or is it instinctive coupling? He started giving sarcastic answers, then honest ones, then questions of his own. Why was she interested? Why her and not one of the drones or scientist cast? Zira smiled one day, a slow, careful gesture that pulled at parts of her face designed for another species. Because I am closest to your kind. Designed to interface, to learn. Designed, Jacob echoed. I am a clone, she said simply, of Queen Zelena, our ruler. She does not speak with other species. I do. I am the copy, made for interaction and experimentation. It unsettled him. Zira was sharp, intelligent, subtly beautiful in a way that grew on him. But the idea that she was engineered, that her entire purpose was to get close to creatures like him, made his skin crawl. Still, something changed between them. Her questions became conversations. Her touch lingered longer during tests. She laughed once. An awkward, glitchy sound, but genuine. And Jacob found himself forgetting the walls were alive, that he was a prisoner. The moment came without ceremony. No guards, no orders, just silence in her private chamber. The two of them alone, breath fogging gently in the warm light. She leaned in and he let her. It was more than curiosity, more than biology. There was something hungry behind her touch, something lonely in her kiss. I should not, she whispered as he pulled her against him. But I want to. It was unlike anything Jacob had experienced. Her body reacted in ways both familiar and alien, responding with precision and instinct. She was made to connect. But this felt real. She trembled, moaned, clung to him with a desperation that had nothing to do with programming. Afterward, she curled beside him, limbs tangled in his, her crest dimmed to a soft lavender hue. You are different, she murmured. You make me feel. I do not know the word. He didn't either. But he held her. Days passed. She stopped using words like subject. The guards didn't return. He was allowed into other chambers, shown how the hive lived, an entire world of sentient architecture, communal psionic links, and caste-based hierarchy. But always Zira at his side, until she collapsed. It happened during a routine walk, her steps faltered, and she clutched her abdomen, keening in pain. Jacob caught her, shouting for help as drones swarmed them. She was taken to the birthing chamber, a place he hadn't known existed. He was locked out. Hours passed. Then the hive physician, gray-eyed and cold, came to him. She is with child. Jacob's mind stalled. What? The hybrid is viable. Development is rapid. This has never occurred before. Zira, recovering in a nutrient cocoon, reached for him when he was finally allowed to see her. You have changed me, she said softly. I am becoming something new. He touched the membrane that separated them. Are you okay? She grows strong, Zira whispered. Your daughter. He staggered back. A daughter, not an experiment. Person. Hive scientists swarmed the chamber with renewed fervor. Drones buzzed. Reports flew. And then the message was sent across the psionic web, loud enough for all to feel. The queen must be informed. Within hours, the entire hive shifted. Lights dimmed. Drones fell silent. Zira shivered in her cocoon, sensing something deeper in the hive's pulse. She is coming, Zira said, eyes wide. The queen herself. No one had seen Queen Zelena in decades. Her word was law, her face myth. When she entered, even the walls bent toward her. Gravity itself seemed to hush. She towered over them all, impossibly regal, armored in pearlescent black, her voice a vibration in the soul. Show me the human. Jacob stepped forward, every instinct screaming to kneel, run, hide. But he didn't. He met her gaze. Her eyes were ancient and endless. You touched what is mine, the queen said. He didn't answer. She walked slowly around him, her fingers grazing his chest, pausing at his jaw. You made something new, she murmured. With a copy. Zira's voice cracked from within her cocoon. He chose me. Zelena turned her head slightly. So he did. She cupped Jacob's face, leaning close enough for him to feel her breath. Then let him choose again. He swallowed. Choose what? She smiled and it chilled the air. The real thing. Jacob froze. She was the experiment. I am the throne. Her voice trembled with something older than desire. Need, legacy, hunger. You've proven yourself compatible. Now you will serve me. Guards stepped aside. Zira cried out from her cocoon. Jacob didn't move. Zelena extended a hand. I will not ask again. Jacob followed the queen through a corridor that pulsed with the low thrum of the hive's core. Every surface shifted subtly in her presence, as if even the architecture bowed to her. Drones cleared from her path, silent and reverent, eyes lowered. Her hand still rested on Jacob's arm, not gripping, guiding, commanding without words. She led him into a chamber unlike the others. There were no bioluminescent walls or breathing floors here. Everything was polished obsidian, sleek and unyielding. This was not a place for comfort. It was a throne. Zelena turned to him once they were alone. Her gaze lingered on his face, tracing the lines of confusion and defiance there. You hesitate, she said, but the hive does not wait. Jacob tensed. I'm not a part of your hive. She stepped closer. You are now. My daughter carries your seed. The hybrid thrives. That alone changes your place in this galaxy. I'm not a pawn, he replied, jaw clenched. No, she agreed, eyes narrowing. You are a key. She circled him, slower than Zira ever did, each movement calculated. Unlike her clone, the queen radiated pressure, a force that bent reality around her. She was not interested in connection. She was interested in result. You've already unlocked something in the clone, she said. But she is a template, imperfect, designed only to see if this was possible. Now I will perfect it. Jacob stepped back. I'm not interested in perfecting anything with you, she smiled. Not insulted, amused. You think you have a choice. But the hive is not democracy. You're not being seduced, human. You're being selected. She lifted a hand, and his body froze. Completely. Not by physical force but psychic command. A wave of psionic pressure crashed through his nervous system. His limbs trembled, locked. The royal line has not conceived naturally in over 400 cycles. Cloning has become our only means of survival. But it is stagnation. Sterility wears at the hive like rot. Her fingers smeared glowing ichor into a sigil on the wall. Then you came. Your DNA did something we've never seen. It awoke Zira. Jacob shook his head. She was already awake. She was already alive. She whispered, with you, we can seed a future not of drones and duty, but of will, of strength. He shook the vision off like cold water. You want a savior. I'm just a man. No, she said. You're a turning point. Their union wasn't tender. It wasn't violent either. It was ritual. A biological transaction cloaked in ceremony. She didn't seduce, she invited. And in that moment, for reasons he barely understood, Jacob accepted. Afterward, she laid beside him, not as a queen, but as something older, a survivor. I was created to lead a species, she said quietly. But even I am subject to extinction. Your kind may be the answer, or just a temporary spark before the dark. Either way, I will not go gently into decline. She was asleep or pretending when Jacob left the chamber. He didn't know where he was going. He only knew that he had to find Zira. The hive had changed in his absence. Tension thickened the air. Drones moved faster, more aggressively. He slipped through halls he barely remembered, avoiding attention. The child Zira carried, it wasn't just a novelty anymore. It was a threat to the old order. And if the queen had what she wanted now, Zira and her unborn child were no longer necessary. He found her deep beneath the hive's heart, guarded by two drones who did not recognize his clearance. A flash of royal code, burned into his DNA after the queen's ceremony, granted him access. Zira was thinner, paler. Her cocoon no longer pulsed with steady light. She looked at him with distant eyes. You came back, she said softly. I had to. They said you accepted her. I didn't accept her, he said. I accepted a choice, one I had no way out of. She laughed bitterly. That's how it always is with the hive. Choices that are not choices. He placed a hand on the shell separating them. I need to get you out of here. You can't. They'll kill you, Zira. The queen got what she wanted. You're a loose end now. Her eyes widened, not with fear but with fire. Then we end the hive. She moved slowly, painfully, out of the cocoon. Her body was weak, but her voice was steady. There is something I never told them. When we created the hybrid, I left a marker, a gene key. It grants access to the Queen's command systems. If we can reach the core. A quake shook the hive. Alarms pulsed. Psionic screams rippled through the walls. Jacob steadied her. What the hell is happening? Zira's eyes glowed faintly. She's giving birth. Elsewhere in the hive, Queen Zelena lay on a throne of obsidian, body convulsing in agony. The child inside her wasn't docile like Zira's. It clawed at her from the inside, pulling energy from the hive's psionic web. The queen's strength kept the system in balance, but now the link was breaking. She screamed, not aloud, but into the mind of every living creature tied to her. Zira collapsed to her knees, clutching her head. Jacob held her, whispering, grounding her. She's destabilizing the hive, Zira gasped. Her child is draining the network, feeding on the collective. She'll destroy everyone just to bring it into the world? She doesn't care. She needs it to live. Jacob helped her to her feet. Then we make sure yours lives first. Zira took a breath, then looked him dead in the eyes. We need to reach the genetic vault. Together, they moved, avoiding patrolling drones, evading eyes that glowed with loyal madness. The hive was tearing itself apart, caught between two futures, the old and the new, and neither willing to die. When they reached the vault, Zira used her signature and the genetic key embedded in her daughter. The door opened with a hiss. Inside were generations of DNA templates, royal codes, forgotten experiments. Jacob looked around. What are we looking for? Zira pulled up a holographic projection, scanning rapidly. Proof that we're stronger together. If we can show the hive that our daughter carries not just royal blood, but evolution, they might listen. Another quake rattled the walls. Drones outside shrieked and turned on each other. Jacob clenched his fists. Or we're already too late. Zira turned to him, holding a glowing strand of code. Then we don't ask. We take the hive. The chamber doors slammed open. Queen Zelena stood silhouetted, breath ragged, eyes burning with exhaustion and rage. Her abdomen glowed with unstable energy. You betrayed me, she rasped. Zira stood between her and Jacob. No, I outgrew you. Zelena raised a hand, psionic force rippling outward. Jacob staggered, but Zira held firm, her own aura flaring in response. Shock spread across Zelena's face. You're connected. She gave me something you never could, Zira said. A reason. The queen stepped forward, but her strength faltered. Her child, still unborn, was draining her life. Jacob moved beside Zira. You built this hive to survive. Maybe it's time to let it change. Zelena's expression twisted. Then prove you can. She collapsed, unconscious or worse. Alarms fell silent. Zira turned to Jacob, heart pounding. We have to move now. Together, they activated the command beacon. The hive pulsed once, then again, and then it listened. The hive was quiet, too quiet. Jacob stood at the heart of the central control room, staring at the glowing core, the engine that powered everything, the brain of the entire hive. Zira was beside him, her hand pressed against the console, guiding him through the delicate web of genetic codes and psionic pathways that connected everything and everyone to Queen Zelena's will. We've won, Zira said, her voice barely a whisper, the weight of her words settling over them both. The walls of the hive, once alive with buzzing drones and psionic energy, now felt cold and empty, like the aftershock of a storm. She looked up at the screen where data streamed across it, too fast for Jacob to fully comprehend. We're not done yet, Jacob replied. His eyes flicked back to the floor, where the faint shimmer of the core pulsed like a dying heart. We're barely keeping this place together. I've seen it break apart in pieces. There's no telling how much damage the queen did when she... He trailed off. The image of Zelena writhing in agony still burned in his mind. Zira's eyes softened as she scanned the readings. You don't understand. She was never truly in control. The hive has always been connected to her, yes, but the heart of it, the true essence, is in the genes we've been cultivating. You, Jacob, our daughter, we hold the key. Her words didn't sit well with him. He didn't want to be a part of this, didn't want to be the reason for their survival or destruction. But his body and his mind were now forever tied to the hive. Every decision, every step he took rippled through the genetic lattice. They couldn't undo it. If we pull the plug, everything's gone. Zira, the hive will collapse. And I'm not even sure I care anymore. Care? Her eyes locked with his, fierce and calculating. You can't undo this. We've already chosen. Now we make it right. She moved to the core, her fingers dancing over the console. This has to be done with precision. The genetic data I've uploaded can restore the hive, but it needs the signal from our daughter. She's the bridge. Jacob's gaze shifted to the sterile chamber they stood in. The once vibrant pulse of the hive had dimmed to a hollow echo. The quiet was unsettling. It was a standoff between life and death, between the new and the old. "You want to build this thing back up?" Jacob asked. "And make what? Another queen?" "No," Zira said, her voice calm, yet resolute. "We will change the structure of the hive. It won't be just a network of drones under one ruler anymore. It will be a true community, shaped by the choices of the many, not the will of one." Jacob stared at her, unsure of what he was hearing. "And what about the others? The drones, the ones that are still loyal to Zelena? They'll adapt. They don't understand what's happening. But they will. It will take time, but with our daughter's influence, they will understand the new way. The hive will be reborn, stronger, more diverse. It will be a democracy, one that thrives on choice. The old ways are gone." The tension in the room thickened. He wanted to believe her, but every part of him still doubted. There was too much at stake, too much chaos in the aftermath of Zelena's reign. He turned back to the core, a deep, hollow feeling swelling in his chest. "And you? What happens to you? After all of this?" Zira's gaze softened, her fingers pausing on the console. "I will lead just as I was always meant to, but I will not do so alone. You are a part of this now. Our daughter, our union, is the foundation." He let the weight of her words settle over him. He knew what she was asking. To be tied to this, to become part of a future that would either break them or bind them together in ways he couldn't predict. "I didn't ask for this," he muttered. But there was no anger in his voice, only resignation. "I didn't ask for any of this." Zira placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch light but firm. "I know, but we all have a choice now." The door behind them hissed open, and Jacob spun around, ready for an attack. But instead, a small figure stumbled in, her eyes wide with awe. Their daughter, still growing, still developing, but strong enough to stand, if only for a few moments. She had inherited her mother's alien features. Pale skin, a slight shimmer to her body, and eyes that gleamed with the intelligence of generations. But her face, her expression, was pure human, full of curiosity and wonder, as if seeing the world for the first time. Jacob stepped toward her, instinctively holding out a hand. "Hey, it's okay." The child reached for him, her tiny hand wrapping around his fingers. The connection was immediate, a bond far deeper than anything he had ever experienced. It was like every molecule in his body resonated with hers. Zira watched them, her expression unreadable. She is the key to all of this, the future of the hive. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," Jacob admitted, kneeling down to meet his daughter's gaze. "You never will be," Zira replied softly. "But that's the beauty of it. You'll learn, just as we all do." The child's eyes shimmered, a soft golden hue emerging in the depth of her gaze. There was power in her, power that had been inherited not only from the queen but from Jacob, a hybrid of two worlds. It was a frightening thought. The potential for destruction, for greatness, was in her tiny hands. Zira stepped forward, and the child instinctively reached out to her as well. "It's time," she said. "We need to release the energy. Let the hive choose its new path." Jacob took a deep breath. He didn't know what the future would hold, didn't know if this was the right choice. But what was the alternative? To walk away and let everything collapse? To abandon Zira and their daughter? He couldn't. He wouldn't. With a final glance at the child, Jacob took Zira's hand. Together they approached the core. The child's presence grew stronger, her connection to the hive activating something deep within the system. A hum filled the air, a sound that vibrated through their very bones. Jacob didn't know what it meant for him, for Zira, or for the hive. But he knew one thing: it was the beginning of something new. "Do it," he whispered. Zira nodded, her fingers moving across the console, entering the final sequence. The core pulsed once more, then again, growing brighter, stronger, until the entire hive seemed to vibrate with the energy of life. The child's eyes gleamed with power as the energy surged through the hive, awakening the dormant codes, binding the old and the new together. The drones, the systems, the very walls of the hive began to hum in unison, shifting and adapting. In that moment, Jacob felt the bond between him and Zira solidify. Not out of force, but out of necessity. They had become part of something far greater than themselves. The queen's reign was over. The hive was reborn. But it wasn't just a hive anymore. It was something new, a living, breathing entity that would thrive on choice, on the unity of its people, not their subjugation. Jacob looked at Zira and their daughter. There was no going back. There was only the future. And for the first time in a long while, he felt like he might actually have a place in it.